From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is U.S. Farm Report.
It's the only place we'll be all year where it's perfectly acceptable to consume grilled cheese and milkshakes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We're thrilled to be back in Madison, Wisconsin for the World Dairy Expo this weekend, and here's what's in store over the next 60 minutes. The devastation from Hurricane Helene and the havoc it had on ag. Aggressive growth with an eye on technology as a fuel to pump out efficiency.
There were some times that I questioned what he was doing and wondering if he was moving a little fast, but that's been Perry's nature, is to keep things moving rather quickly, and it's worked out really well.
At not even 35 years old, this Wisconsin dairy farmer is making waves and now receiving a recognition. Spunky and fearless, both in and out of the ring with a dire diagnosis not even a year ago.
It's really rare.
How rare?
Like 2% of the world has it.
It's such a hard thing to hear that your daughter could die.
In need of a heart transplant at just 12 years old, how the Love for Lexi movement is capturing hearts while also trying to save hers. Now for the news. It's been a week since Hurricane Helene came ashore, and we are just getting a look at the scope of the damage to farms and ranches in the southeast. USDA estimates that insurance payouts for losses across the southeast could reach $7 billion. In Georgia, cotton crops ready for harvest were flattened, and the state's cotton commission saying affected producers are reporting yield losses ranging from 35% to a total loss. But poultry, timber, and pecan crops also saw heavy damages in the states. Moses Pecans in Uvalde, Georgia, sharing these devastating scenes, saying they have 80% total tree loss across all their orchards. About 20% of the younger trees are left. And overall, the University of Georgia is estimating larger pecan trees suffered about a 70% loss, and younger trees saw about a 40% loss. Georgia peanut farmers worked ahead of the storm to harvest what they could, but in one county, there was major damage to a peanut elevator and storage bin. And in North Carolina, farmers are having to go to incredible lengths to get their cows milked. The North Carolina Farm Bureau sharing these pictures and videos from one farmer helping to move a fellow producer's entire milking herd to a different farm and working to get a milking facility up and running that had sat idle for 9 years. He says he knows several farmers who have lost all their winter's feed, and some lost cattle as well. And in eastern Tennessee, it's much of the same story, with pictures shared of flooding and fields underwater. The news comes as harvest continues to pick up pace. The latest crop progress report from USDA reporting 21% of the corn crop has met with the combine, 3 points ahead of average. For soybeans, 26% is harvested. That's 8 points ahead of average. And cotton harvest, well, it's now 20% complete, 4 points ahead of the normal pace. And winter wheat planting now well underway with 39% of the crop in the ground, 1 point ahead of average. Meanwhile, farmers continue to deal with old crop. USDA releasing its quarterly grain stocks report earlier this week. The agency reporting old crop corn stocks as of September 1st totaled 1.76 billion bushels. That's up 29% from last year. 780 million bushels of that are stored on farms, also up 29% from a year ago. Off-farm stocks totaled 980 million bushels, up 30%. And for old crop soybeans, it's a similar story. 342 million bushels is being stored, up 29% from September 1st of last year, with 111 million bushels on farms, up 54%. Off-farm stocks coming in at 231 million bushels, up 20%. In wheat, it sets at just under 2 billion bushels, up 12%. On-farm is at 664 million bushels, up 11%. Off-farm, that's up 13% at 1.32 billion. Analysts called the corn stock number friendly.
What it probably suggests is we definitely fed a lot. The disappearance in the fourth quarter was strong. We needed it to be strong to get a good number today, and we got it. The other wild card was maybe would they find some extra bushels from last year's crop? That kind of surprised us. At this point, we did not get it. So I guess you could argue the government had a pretty good handle on the ending stock numbers at the moment.
Well, we also received the small grains summary with all wheat production totaling 1.97 billion bushels, up 9% from last year, with an average yield of 51.2 bushels per acre. That's up 2.5 bushels from last year. We will have more on these numbers coming up in our roundtable discussion. And 3 days of walking the picket lines, U.S. longshoremen are back on the job this weekend at East and Gulf Coast ports. That's after reaching a tentative deal. Reuters reports the agreement includes a wage hike of about 62% over 6 years. That would raise the average pay to about $63 per hour, up from $39 per hour. The deal ends the biggest work stoppage in nearly half a century at the ports. The U.S. Dairy Export Council and the National Milk Producers Federation welcoming the news, saying it was severely affected by the disruptions as $1.7 billion in dairy exports flow through the East and Gulf Coast ports each year. The U.S. Meat Export Federation also saying the end of the strike for now was a tremendous relief, as about $100 million worth of beef and pork products are exported every week through those ports. Meanwhile, workers at a Cargill factory in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, are also on strike. The strike involving Teamsters Local 238 starting Tuesday night after it rejected the company's latest offer. Its contract with the company expired on Monday night. It says it has been in discussions over wages and working conditions impacting about 100 workers.
That's it for the news. Well, it is just heartbreaking to see the effects of the hurricane in the southeast. And we'll have a check of your weather coming up next.
U.S. Farm Report is brought to you by Pioneer.
Ben's bins, please hold.
Yeah, Ben's has been busy all day.
Seems like no one can keep up with this new Z series. What did you all put in these seeds?
Science.